The board is reconvening from closed session where no action was taken. At this time, reconvene in open session. All items discussed or voted upon this evening have been posted as required by law. I extend a warm welcome to everybody here tonight. I think this room might be cold from looking out at you. A lot of people are bundled up, so we'll make an adjustment if necessary. The goal of the board is to hear reports of the superintendent, set goals, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy. We're not here to make management decisions or solve problems of individuals. Management's the responsibility of Dr. Kincannon and her staff. We appreciate the time you've taken to join us and for your interest in Waco ISD. At this time, we will take a moment of silence and afterward the Pledge of Allegiance. But at this time, I'd ask everybody to pause with me as we take a moment for prayer, contemplation, reflection, or meditation. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, Mr. Woocher, welcome. I was looking for Mr. DeBeer and he wasn't moving.
We're changing it up on you. Well, thank you, Madam President. Tonight, we are pleased to have two students from Cesar Chavez Middle School to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Karen Chavez and Maddox Wheeler. Mr. Alonzo McAdoo is the principal of Cesar Chavez Middle School and has accompanied the students this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, one indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, students. Dr. Kincannon and board members, please would you join us in front of the dais for tonight's special recognition. We will begin the special recognition portion of our meeting with an introduction of our pledge leaders, who both attend Cesar Chavez Middle School. Karen Chavez, a sixth grader, says reading and math are her favorite subjects. She's involved in orchestra and enjoys reading and playing with her little brother. One of Karen's teachers said she always works hard, is meticulous, and is a natural leader. Karen's parents, Vanessa Calvillo and Jorge Chavez, have accompanied her here tonight. Please stand so we may recognize you. And thank you for sharing your daughter with us this evening. And Maddox Wheeler, also a sixth grader at Cesar Chavez, and his favorite class is math. Maddox plays in the band and also enjoys gaming and playing soccer. One of Maddox's teachers said he is a leader in the classroom, has a positive attitude, is a hard worker, and is always smiling. Maddox's parents, Serena Carrizales and Thomas Wheeler, have also joined us this evening. Please stand so we may recognize you as well. Thank you for raising such a wonderful son. Each year, the Waco Women's Lions Club hosts the local portion of the organization's International Peace Poster Contest, where youths ages 11 to 13 are given the opportunity to share their artistic vision for peace. Approximately 600,000 students from 75 countries participate in this contest annually. Since its inception in 1988, millions of children around the world have participated. The 2019-2020 theme, Journey of Peace, drew 34 qualified entries at the local level, and Waco ISD students took top 3 prizes. Tonight, we're excited to recognize one of those 3 students, and we will recognize the other 2 students in the future. At this time, please join me in welcoming the first place winner in the Waco Women's Lions Club Peace Poster Contest, Ariel Stone, a 5th grader at South Waco Elementary. Her entry, as you can see on the screens now. This evening, we'd also like to recognize Miss Siegfried Whitford, the art teacher at South Waco Elementary, for her dedication to her students and for encouraging and guiding her students' artistic expression. If you are a parent or family member here to support Ariel this evening, please stand so we may recognize you at this time. Congratulations to Ariel on her outstanding artistic achievements, and thank you for representing Waco ISD so well. Achieve 3000, a part of our district literacy curriculum, is a differentiated internet-based program that allows students to read articles at their individual level and test themselves on comprehension, with more than 15,000 students in Texas participating on a daily basis. During the months of October and November, 3 students from Mr. Greg Obray's 3rd grade class at Dean Highland Elementary School earned the highest weekly score in the state in the Achieve 3000 reading program. Tonight, we're pleased to recognize these outstanding 3rd grade students for their incredible hard work and success. Please welcome Leonardo Galino, top scorer of week October 7th to the 11th, 2019. Love the bow tie. Elon Capatillo, the top scorer for the week of October 21st to the 25th. And Keon Cobb, the top scorer of November 11th to the 15th. And of course, none of this would be possible without the guidance, encouragement, and outstanding instruction from their classroom teacher. So let's give a special thank you and congratulations to Mr. Greg Obray, 3rd grade teacher at Dean Highland. Thank you for your dedication to your students and giving them opportunities to demonstrate their knowledge and skills and shine while doing so. If you are a parent or family member of any of these students, would you please stand at this time as well? Congratulations once again to these students on this amazing accomplishment. All of us at Waco ISD are incredibly proud of your hard work. The University High School Theater Department recently competed at the Texas Thespians 2019 State Festival held November 21st to the 23rd. Following the school's first ever national qualification in 2018, the University High School Theater Department will again be sending students to the International Thespian Society's national competition based on entries submitted at the Texas Thespians 2019 State Festival. A total of 8 students qualified in the festival's performance and technical events. To qualify for the national competition, students had to earn a superior rating at the state competition. First up, please join me in welcoming and congratulating Jonathan Seda, Mariah Sosa, Tyler Mitchell, and Bianca Contreras for group acting, The Book of Everything, Felicia Marquez, hair and makeup design, The Marriage of Betty and Boo, Hunter Pederini and Gabriella Strickland, duet acting scenes from Constellations. And one of these students earned an additional bit of recognition. Please welcome back Tyler Mitchell. Still over there. Yes, we will return. Tyler Mitchell earned an additional bit of recognition. Tyler competed in and won the festival's Critic Works contest, which involves writing critical reviews and articles about the plays performed at the Texas Thespians Festival. His article will be published in Dramatics Magazine. It's a nationally distributed magazine from the Educational Theater Association. We are incredibly proud of these students and their dedication to their craft and the arts, but we would be remiss to not also recognize the 2 teachers and directors who worked with these students to learn their craft and hone their skills and provide guidance and encouragement. Please join me in welcoming University High School Director of Theater, Mr. Glenn Price, and Technical Director, Ms. Katie Davis. Thank you for your dedication to your students and the performing arts. It is because of your hard work and passion that we're able to prepare our students to be successful beyond core academics, and prepare them to be contributors to a global society. If any parents or family members of these students are here this evening, would you please stand and be recognized at this time? Congratulations once more to these students and good luck as they compete at the International Thespian Festival at Indiana University Bloomington next June. Got a little cavalcade. Okay. A University High School senior, Mariah Sosa, is heading to the UIL Congress State Tournament following competition at the regional level in November. Congress is an individual contest in a large group setting that models the legislative process of democracy, specifically the United States Congress. Within this mock legislative assembly competition, contestants draft legislation submitted to the tournament, and they research the docket of bills and resolutions dealing with real-world social and political policies prior to the contest to prepare their speeches. So at this time, please welcome UHS senior and UIL Congress State qualifier, Mariah Sosa. Mariah's assigned legislation at regional competition was a bill to reduce the production of secondary animal byproducts. Judges evaluate contestants for their research and analysis of issues, argumentation, skill in asking and answering questions, use of parliamentary procedure, and clarity and fluency of speaking. At this time, we'd also like to recognize University High School debate coach, Mr. Glenn Price. Again, thank you for your dedication to your students, for guiding them and learning the important skills learned through events such as speech, debate, and Congress. If any of Mariah's family members are here this evening, would you please stand and be recognized as well? Congratulations once more to Mariah, and good luck at the UIL Congress State Tournament coming up January 14th to the 15th at the University of Texas at Austin and the Texas State Capitol. Waco ISD's theme for 2019-2020 school year is Rise. The theme celebrates learning and growing as well as overcoming challenges and recognizes that no school district rises by itself. Instead, Waco ISD rises when families, employees, and the community join together to realize their shared hopes and dreams for the district's students and their future. Waco ISD is blessed to have scores of community partners who are deeply invested in the district's students and their success. Each month, the district will recognize a community partner making a difference with the RISE Award for Outstanding Community Partners. In December, the district is recognizing STARS Book Clubs. STARS Book Clubs were established by Antioch Community Church in the spring of 2013 at Provident Heights Elementary School. The program pairs small groups of elementary students with a reading buddy who meets with them on a weekly basis, focusing on improving students' reading skills. And since 2013, the program has grown to now include 40 churches from the Waco community, providing 444 mentors that serve more than 1,000 Waco ISD students across 12 elementary campuses. Here this evening to represent STARS Book Clubs and accept the RISE Award, please welcome Director Michael Jeter, Assistant Director Kenneth McAdam, Program Coordinators Heather Baker and Daniel Perez. And we sincerely thank the STARS Book Clubs, including those 444 mentors from across the community, for your commitment and dedication to the students of Waco ISD. Thank you again. All right, and that will conclude this evening's special recognitions. Thank you.
Next on our agenda, audience for guests. I don't know that anybody signed up. Is any Christy walked out with the group? Okay. Next, actually, audience for guests was actually before our special recognition, I noticed, so I'm sorry if I threw you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Kincaid.
All right, well, good evening. I have a couple of items this evening. First of all, I don't have any introductions. We'll have some in January, but I don't have any this evening. So I'll move to the Design Thinking Institute, which was the highlight of my week, and I'm delighted this evening to share some moments from our 3-day Design Thinking Institute that was facilitated by Professors Dr. Julie Schell and Tammy Glass of the University of Texas's School of Design and Creative Technologies. A little bit about design thinking. It is a framework, a human-centered, creative decision-making approach to solving problems, and we wanted to learn the framework but use it in a way that we could talk about teacher retention, induction, and recruitment in Waco ISD. And so that's what we had done over the last 3 days. It was truly amazing. It was an enlightening 3-day experience with a wonderful group of about 50 people. We had principals, assistant principals, teachers from all levels in attendance, ranging from first-year teachers up to 10-year veteran teachers, as well as partners from higher education, Baylor University, Tarleton State University, Texas Tech University at Waco ISD, and McLennan Community College MCC was represented. And we have 2 photos to share with you this evening that are behind you, actually, of some of the activities at the event. But you can see that MCC was represented in one of our photos here. Is Daylin Copeland. She's the Director of Child Development, and she's working with our Assistant Superintendent for Student Services and Support, Dr. Rochelle Warren. And then we also had the pleasure of being joined by community members, including Eunice Williams from the Heart of Texas Workforce Solutions, Felicia Goodman of Cooper Foundation, and Reverend Brian Dalco of Prosper Waco. We also had 2 high school seniors in attendance, David Crane from University High School, seen here, with Principal Matt Rambo. And David kept us on our toes. And Sophia Schwenke from Waco High School participated in the event. And design thinking is really transformative. It's a really creative approach to examining problems. It challenges us to confront problems from different perspectives, and it offers a framework for developing creative solutions to those problems. And it gave us, those last 3 days gave us the opportunity to hear from teachers and administrators about some of the problems that they're facing. And I was so moved by the staff who participated and willingly shared their experiences and the struggles that they have. And my heart was really heavy, particularly yesterday as we heard from teachers about the struggles that they have with curriculum. But we're hopeful. And we ended the day talking about the optimism and the hope that we have, because we do believe that all of the problems that they're facing are solvable. And we spent time 3 days and prototyped some ideas for receiving teacher feedback, coming up ways with some unique ways that we could make our teachers feel valued and heard, and retain them in Waco ISD. And so it was an exciting 3 days for me, and I would like to offer the opportunity to some more teachers again, as well as the remainder of our principals who weren't able to participate this week. So we're looking at some dates with the University of Texas trainers again for February to run a second round. It was a good time to connect with the staff It was a good time to connect with the community, and we came up with some really great ideas. So now we'll process those ideas and keep working, see what we can do. Do you have any questions about design thinking? All right. Yes, I hope you hear some things from some of the staff members who were in attendance, several of our principals who are here this evening, and our district level administrators participated. Next, I have an update on the 2020-2021 school calendar. Ms. Kornblum has been working on that, and she presented 3 options for feedback to the QDAC, the Quality District Advisory Council, at their meeting on November the 18th. And then that feedback was used to refine those 3 options, and those options are now available on the website for employees, parents, and community members to vote on up until January the 8th, and those can be found again on the district's website. They all 3 have school starting the 3rd week in August. I think 2 have school on Monday and 1 on Tuesday of that week. And as you will recall, because Waco ISD does have a District of Innovation designation, we may begin before the state mandated 4th Monday in August. So that's why that is at that time period. Each calendar also has a full week off at Thanksgiving, 2 weeks at Christmas, and the week of March the 8th, 2021 for spring break, which is aligned to Baylor University and MCC's calendars. And I would say there's not a lot of flexibility in calendars these days, school calendars, so the differences between the 3 calendars are pretty minor, mostly having to do with the placement of professional development days. But we did provide some options, and those are out there for the community to take a look at. That's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Consent agenda. No one expressed an interest in pulling any item off of the agenda as presented, and so I'll entertain a motion. Thank you, Mr. Dupuy and Mr. Manning. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is the resolution to cast votes in the McLennan County Appraisal District Board of Directors election. Ms. Davis, there's probably not much of a report.
No, she's listed on the agenda as a presenter, but you can see the votes there that have already been cast. And Waco ISD has 952 votes. And it would be my recommendation that those votes go to Alan Sykes.
Okay, I'll accept that as Mr. Dupuy's motion to accept the recommendation that all of the district's votes go to Mr. Sykes. A second from Ms. Cordaweg. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
1 recusal.
6 for and 1 recuse. Mr. DeBeer. Review and discuss 5-year performance data for campuses operated by Transformation Waco.
Thank you, Madam President. Last month, the board undertook the process required by board policy ELA local of conducting an annual evaluation of the campuses operated by Transformation Waco. That evaluation looked at a very narrow period of time. It looked at 2017-18 school year compared to the 2018-19 school year. During the discussion of the evaluation, Trustee Cordaweg suggested that it would be helpful to have a 5-year perspective leading up to when Transformation Waco began operating the campuses to place the data from last year in context. And so tonight we wanted to bring you a fairly top level but still 5-year look at performance data for those campuses. And at one point in the conversation, Trustee Cordaway also requested some comparison data for the state and the district as well, so we're going to share that with you too. We do have a challenge, though, because of changes in the state's accountability system of giving you 5 years of the same piece of data. And because the metrics in the contract are specifically based on the current accountability system, which has not been in place for 5 years, we have to look at something else. And in this case, we looked at the taper data that Trustee Cordaway suggested we turn to, and in particular, passing rates on the taper data in a variety of areas for those campuses, for the district, and for the state. But before we dive into those passing rates, I do want to note that how the passing rates are defined varies some from year to year. So what we're going to be showing you is the same thing in terms of its significance to the state. It's the level at which a student passed. But because of changes in the accountability system, you actually see over 3 separate definitions in 5 years of what passing on the state standardized assessment means. And if you dig even deeper within, say, the last 3 years, where that general term of being the percent at approaches grade level or above was the mark for passing, the actual student performance on a test that equated to being at approaches grade level or above could vary from year to year as the state changed where the cut scores are. So what we're showing you is a consistent comparison in terms of what the state is looking at as passing on these tests, but it is not necessarily a consistent comparison in terms of the score that an individual student needed to earn on the test in order to pass, if that makes sense and is helpful, I hope. So the first chart that we'd like you to take a look at are the passing rates for all students, all grades, and all subjects in the 5 campuses operated by Transformation Waco in the district and in the state. You can find this beginning on page 49 of your packet in case the chart that's on the screen is a little small for you to read off of the screen. Couple things broadly that I would point out, and then some specific observations about this chart. Broadly, I think you'll see as we go through the data, the larger the group of students we're talking about, the less sort of dramatic shifts there are in the data. And if you think about that, that makes sense. If we're talking about a small subpopulation of students that may be 15 or 20 students in a given school year, that's much more significant if 2 or 3 students move between passing and failing, as the state's defined it, between 2 years, than if we're talking about a group of several hundred students and the students move between there. Overall, I think the trends that you're going to see as we move through these charts, starting with all students, all grades, all subjects, and then digging in a little deeper in some specific subject areas and some specific demographic areas, are really pretty similar to what you see in this chart, which is, in general, across the campuses and the district, you saw a little bit of a decline basically from the 13-14 school year to the 14-15 school year. You see more or less a similar trend across the 5 campuses in the district of some incremental improvement. And where you start to see some divergence in performance is from the 2017-18 school year to the 2018-19 school year. And I think this shows in just kind of another way what we've looked at before and said that when you look at the 5 campuses as a group, you see some mixed results. You see some declines in areas, particularly at J.H. Hines Elementary and G.W. Carver Middle. You see increases or a rapiding of the pace of increase at Brook Avenue Elementary, and you see Indian Spring and Alta Vista more or less sustaining the path that they're on. The last thing that I would point out about this particular chart and the charts that follow is when we talk about Waco ISD, that's an inclusive percentage, so that includes the 5 campuses operated by Transformation Waco. Those aren't pulled out separately to give you a district number minus those campuses as we go through. So that's a broad full district trend. The next thing that we would show you is the same thing, looking specifically in this case at reading tests. Again, I think you see fairly similar trends as you saw before, but a little more clearly here. I would point out that you see Alta Vista and Indian Spring outperforming where that district average of all of our campuses is. You see that same sort of general trend and then a little bit more of divergence in the last year. Move on to mathematics. The data looks a little different, particularly in that 2014-15 school year, because the only math test data that you're seeing there is for the Algebra 1 EOC. And so you see the middle school data and you see that it has a very definite peak there, but again, we're also drilling down to a smaller subset of even just middle school students in that year than you see at the other years reflected in the chart, but very similar patterns. Similar patterns are true for all students, all grades in writing to a large extent. One thing that I would also mention about the charts relative to each other as we go through here, where you're looking at the passing rate for a group of students or all students in all grades in a particular subject or all subjects, all of the charts have the same vertical scale, so they go all the way from 0% to 100%. So where you see those lines fall as they move up and down relative on the chart also gives you a sense of how performance in one subject area to another or from one group to another might vary a bit. In science, you see a little bit different trend. You see some steeper increases as we moved through the years, but still kind of a similar uptick and then some divergence in the last year. Social studies, we're only looking at data at the middle school level. There you really see kind of a trend that looks very similar even in the last year from the district and from the two middle school campuses operated by Transformation Waco. There again, because the district numbers include the Transformation Waco campuses, as you narrow down to just looking at social studies tests, so just looking at secondary students, the Transformation Waco campuses become a slightly greater percentage of the district number, and so they're having some effect on that pattern, but very similar trends between the district and those campuses. This is the passing rates for African American students in all grades, all subjects. And so we wanted to show you the subject level data because we have some places in the metrics where we look specifically at combined scores across reading, ELA, and math. But we also want to show you some demographic data because a number of the metrics in the performance contract essentially look at all of the relevant subpopulations for a particular calculation and take an average of their performance across it. And here you see something, pretty similar to the trends that you saw looking at all students, but starting to break out a particular demographic group, and you see that sort of initial downturn early in the 5 years. You see some incremental gains, some levels off a bit more as you look at this demographic group, and then you see a little bit of divergence from 17-18 to 18-19, where you see a steeper climb up at Brook Avenue, that decline a bit more pronounced here at J.H. Hines Elementary than at Carver Middle School, and Indian Spring and Alta Vista kind of sustaining that trajectory that they're on in the last year. Next, this is Hispanic students, all grades, all subjects, very similar to what we've seen before. These are passing rates for white students, all grades, all subjects, and what I'll note that you see in this chart for the first time is you see an asterisk in a field, and that's where TEA has masked the data, typically because the number of students is so small. Because it's masked and not non-existent, it does show that it counted for accountability in that year generally, but that it was a small number, or that it may have counted for accountability, as opposed to that there weren't any students who fit into that demographic group. Now you're looking at passing rates for students of 2 or more races in all grades or all subjects. It's kind of harder to draw as many conclusions from this because you have so many places through the 5-year period where data's been masked, so you don't get as complete of a picture. You're also, and one of the things that you're seeing so many places where data is masked, that's telling you that this is a very small group, and as we drill in smaller groups, it's a smaller number of students that creates a big swing. So while you see that sort of big peak in 17-18, big drop at a couple of campuses going into 18-19, in absolute terms, instead of percentages, that's a relatively small number of students seeing their performance change as a share of the group from 1718 to 1819. Small number of students in absolute terms, larger percentage because the overall group is smaller. These are, excuse me, these are passing rates for special education students, all grades, all subjects. Again, because of the way data is masked in places where you have some smaller numbers, you don't have as clear of a picture. But in general, you see the same sort of trends that we've seen through the other subject areas and demographic groups. Passing rates for economically disadvantaged students, all grades, all subjects, looks very similar to the trends that we saw for all students, all grades, all subjects, and the trends that we've seen in most of the charts moving through the 5-year data. This is passing rates for English language learners, all grades, all subjects, and this is presented a little differently because in 2017-18, the state changed the way that it reports this data on the TAPER report, moving from essentially showing you just English language learners who are currently in an English language learner program in the district to beginning to show you both students who are currently in the program and students who are still being monitored after exiting the program. So as a result, you actually see two different data points for 2016-17. On the left, you see the patterns up through 16-17 with the data reported in 16-17 for just those current ELL students. On the right, you see the data reported starting in 17-18, but on that year's TAPER, TEA went back and calculated looking at what 16-17 would have been, looking at this broader group of ELL students. And so you can kind of see how that creates a shift in the data, but the trends where you have this stair-step gap in the middle, this trend still kind of align with what you've seen in other areas over that 5-year period. And then the last thing we wanted to bring you in here, the scale on the chart does change, are the attendance rates for the 5-year period along with comparisons for the state and the district. And one thing that I would note about the data generally before sort of a couple of observations about the chart, when you look at the data that's listed for 2017-18 in this chart, you're going to see some small differences from the data that we presented to you in the evaluation. Those range from a decrease of 0.1% compared to what you saw for that year in the evaluation at Indian Spring Middle School to an increase of 0.5 percentage point at Brook Avenue. It appears that this is due to the way that we break out data a little differently with attendance for students assigned to DAEP, to the Challenge Academy, and how attendance data is reported by the state. The challenge that we have in trying to use the TAPER data across all of the evaluations is that attendance rates are an area on the TAPER where there's a 1-year lag. And so when you look at the 18-19 TAPER that's just available online recently, you have available the 17-18 attendance rate is calculated by TEA, but you don't have the 18-19 attendance rate. So to bring you that rate, looking at the evaluation last month, we used the data that was available internally. Because the metric's tied to 18-19 and not 17-18, this change in the data that we're seeing on the TAPER now wouldn't have any effect or wouldn't cause us at this point to reevaluate whether or not any of those campuses met the metric where they didn't before. The biggest change that we saw, as I mentioned, was that 0.5 percentage point comparing the two different sets of 2017-18 data at Brook Avenue. The only place looking at the 2018-19 attendance rate percentages where 0.5 percentage point increase or decrease would make a difference in the campus meeting the metric written into the performance evaluation is actually at Brook Avenue, where they were at 96.8% in the 2018-19 data that we looked at internally. Their goal or their target for that metric was 97%. So when we have next year's TAPER data, that's something that we'll be sure to check and compare back against. But in general, one of the things that you see is that, certainly overall, these campuses have, with 1 or 2 years of exception, looked better than the district as a whole. And you definitely see some marked increases at a couple of campuses looking from 17-18 to 18-19. And that is a very quick look at a lot of data for the past 5 years. So please feel free to ask questions and dig deeper into it.
Mr. DeBeer, thank you so much for getting this. This is super helpful to kind of look at the trends. I know that the the passing rate and the way that they calculate it kind of changes a little bit from year to year. Thankfully, it doesn't change in this huge leaps and bounds. It's usually kind of percentage points, a couple questions here or there. So I really appreciate that. This helps kind of give a visualization to kind of what is going on. I would even say for the district, for our district, to kind of know, okay, what are the trend lines looking like? And so I really appreciate you doing that. This is very helpful and kind of gives more of a broader bird's eye view of what's going on. And thank you for putting that together, because I know it takes time and energy. And so I really appreciate that. This helps me, I think, not only know kind of where the transformation zone is, but also where our district is. And I'm seeing some positive trend lines, and it doesn't, in my opinion, we don't need huge gains. We need small steps in the right direction and to keep heading in that trajectory. And so I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing, and I know there's many more good things that are going to be coming in the future. So I really appreciate all your time and your hard work that you've put into this, and it, I don't know for everyone else, but for me, it helps me kind of understand where we've been and kind of where we're going. So thank you.
Thank you. It's great to hear that.
Anybody else? No? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, a lot of data, and you did get through it pretty quickly. Thank you for that, too. Next, kind of more data. A through F, accountability. Ms. Corcoran. Not quite as complex, though. Well, the chart is complex. I'll back that up. All right, all yours.
I'm waiting for this slide to be. Well, while we get that queued up, what we're going to be discussing tonight is just a very quick overview of CCMR data, looking at where we're heading in the future with that, because there have been some changes to CCMR accountability. And so we wanted to let the board know what we're doing to stay on top of that and explain the results, or the accountability data rather, and how that's reported, because it will be actually 2 years before we see the effects of what we're doing now, because CCMR data and, of course, our graduation data are both lag data and run 2 years behind. So, in looking at that, just a quick overview, not getting into accountability overall, but our CCMR data and our graduation rates both fall in the student achievement, which is domain 1 for us. And at the district level and high school level, those are, as you can see up there, we get to choose the better of domain 1 or 2, but that is 70% of our overall rating. So if I'm an elementary campus, my data is solely based on my results on STAR, but at this level, this is going to count more significantly for us. So elementary, like I said, 100% comes from STAR, but at high school, 40% comes from our CCMR rating, and then 20% from our graduation results. And so, as we'll see in a moment, like I said, this is lag data, so we have to be really confident that we're on top of changes so that we are prepared and know what's ahead of us, so that that doesn't come back and we're not. And then in 2 years, we realize we didn't do the things we needed to do to be where we need to be. So, as I said, that is lag data, but for our graduation rate, we're looking at the 4-year rate from the class of 2019 and 5-year from the class of 2018 and 17. Now, the interesting thing about this is the class of, so this isn't cohort data. This is if you were in our district and you graduated, you are going to count for us here. So we're going to look now into each area of CCMR. So first we'll look at College Ready. You'll notice on each slide the things in red are the new additions that came about as of this year's accountability. So scoring a 3 or a 4 on an AP or an IB exam has always been there. You may still be college ready if you achieve that. Meet TSI criteria on either the TSI exam in both math or reading, as well as the TSI criteria for the SAT, ACT. And then if a student happens to be unsuccessful in one of those areas, they can take a college prep course in the area where they didn't meet the criteria to make that up and receive credit for college ready. You can earn credit in dual credit. Now, these are college hours, not just credit at the high school level for passing the course, but college hours. So we would earn that by 9 hours or more in any subject at the college level, or 3 hours in either math or reading at the college level. And then, of course, earning an associate's degree. The new piece there, you'll see the on-ramps course. It has been around, but it hasn't been widely utilized until recently. So on-ramps is actually through the University of Texas. And if a student is in an on-ramps course, they would be considered dually enrolled. And so what happens is students have the luxury of taking an on-ramps course. Now, let me preface this. By Waco ISD currently does not participate in the on-ramps program. So a student would take an on-ramps course. They're offered in many subjects, just like your dual credit would be. A student can choose to take that on-ramps passing rate, if they want it, and transfer it to a college in Texas. However, they don't have to. That's why it's dual enrollment. If they take it and pass it, they could still get credit for CCMR, even if they did not want to transfer that credit into a college. So the benefits, I suppose, are if a student didn't want to start accumulating a college GPA, because when we take our dual credit courses, our college GPA is accumulating, and that could be a benefit because they could get the credit while not transferring that credit if they chose to do that.
Yeah, I might add a little bit to that. Those are courses that would be transcribed by the University of Texas.
Yes.
And the University of Texas actually trains the teachers for those courses and then does the grading, I believe, for the testing to earn the credit. So they're actually taught in the district with teachers who are trained but graded and transcribed by the University of Texas.
Okay, so for career ready, this is where we're going to see the biggest change. So earned an industry-based certification, that has always been a criteria that could be counted towards CCMR credit. The big change, though, you'll see complete CTE, coherent sequence of coursework, credit aligned with an approved industry-based certification. You see that says half point there. So in the past, if students took a course in a coherent sequence of courses that could lead to a certification, they could receive credit. Now, our students, after our last class, so this ship has sailed, they're gone. After last year's class, students no longer receive credit for simply taking the courses. They must end up with a certification. So our graduating class of 2019, they phased this in. They will receive a half point if they took a class in the coherent sequence of courses but did not receive the certification, rather than the full point. Graduates who are in the special education program and who complete their IEP and can be considered workforce ready, and I'll talk, I have some slides after this that explain these two things a little bit more, but if they're coded as a 54 or a 55, they may also be considered career ready. And then this next section in red, earn a level 1 or 2 certificate. That's the new piece. So they have to take the coherent sequence of courses and earn a level 1 or 2 certificate. Most of our students would earn a level 1 certificate because that's mostly what's going to be offered at the high school level. A level 2, that is what our colleges are offering. So the only way that our students would receive that would be if they earned that through an associate's degree program. And after speaking with Donna McKethan, who is, actually the guru on this, she said we do not have a lot of students who are in line to do that. Most of our students, this would happen for them in the summer after graduation, which would be fine. in terms of accountability, because students get 4 years and the summer to complete. So if that were to happen, that would still count for accountability purposes, but most of our students would be a level 1. The other thing to note with our level 1 certifications is that through House Bill 3, there is funding to pay for the level 1 certificates if a student passes the certification. So if they don't, then we are not reimbursed for that. But one of the things on our certifications that we were discussing is that our CTE department was aware, and when the state went through realignment of this, so we went, there are now 144 certifications that students are able to get credit for. Now, with that being said, no district offers all 144. They have to do a study and analyze what is right for their area, what the job market is in their area. And so Donna and members of her CTE team were actually on the state advisory board and gave input to that. So they put themselves kind of ahead of the game to be positioned well to know what we were heading into. And so because of that, we're sitting pretty nicely with the level 1 certificates that we offer. We currently have 16 academies that students can participate in, and there's an option of earning a choice of 25 certificates. So that's a pretty good offering. We do have 2 certificates, which are the forklift certification and the OSHA 10, that are not on the approved list, but those would be almost secondary certificates obtained with another that would be important to the job that you were going to get, such as forklift. A forklift operator might also be getting a level 1 welder's certification. So it would help them be more job ready. Yeah. So so we're sitting nicely in terms of being prepared and having a lot of offerings for our students as of now. So the last bullet on that slide, graduate under an advanced degree plan and identified as a current special education student. So I'm going to explain that just a little bit more in the next couple of slides. So back to the graduation code of a 54. So if a student is in the special education program and they are able to obtain full-time employment, and that would be based on their abilities and, of course, opportunities in our area for them to be employed, in addition to mastering sufficient self-help skills to enable the student to maintain employment without direct and ongoing educational support from our district. This is a little gray. There are no just cut and dry definitions of what that means. And so we just recently went to both Waco High School and University High School and met with their counselors, and our special education staff went with us, and our transition coordinator went with us. And so we went through all current special students who are in the special education program and who are seniors. And I'll show you why we did that here in a little bit when I show you a report of how our graduates ended last year in each area. And looked to see where are they? Are they in line to do this? Current practice was to code all graduates at 34 or 35, which is basically a graduate graduating under a foundation plan with an endorsement, but that does not make them college or career ready. However, if the ARD committee deems it appropriate to code them a 54 or 55 because they're employable, then that is possible. So then it's working with our special education department and our ARD committees and training on what does that mean. And so Charlotte is our executive director of special education, is working to help our ARD administrators and such define that and know what that looks like, because there really isn't a clear definition of what that is. So the 55 is very similar to the 54, requires a demonstration of mastery of specific employability skills and self-help skills that do not require direct ongoing educational support. So the other, they would actually be employed. This shows that they could be employable. And then for a student who is also in special education, there is one more way. So they could graduate under an advanced degree plan that requires the graduation plan type is identified as recommended or distinguished. I would like to note that the recommended and distinguished plans, this will be the last year that those are in effect, because those are the old graduation plan types and have changed to our foundation high school plan with an endorsement, or the foundation high school plan with a distinguished level of achievement. And so both would require an endorsement, and then the foundation high school plan with a distinguished level of achievement would mean that they would also have to have had Algebra 2 in combination. Military ready. We just received some information on this, so we were all curious as to how this was going to be calculated. In the past, students showed interest, a serious interest, and we had to document what that serious interest was, and pass the ASVAB. Well, now we had heard that TEA was going to get the support of the Department of Defense to give us that data, and they now, as of last night, I received information from Region 12 that this is moving forward. And so how that would work would be basically students would have to pass the ASVAB, and that would be the first indicator. And then what would happen after that is TEA would submit PEIMS data to the DoD to report our graduates, and they will match them via Social Security numbers, whatever identifiers they use, and then they would match to say, okay, this student passed the ASVAB, yes or no, they enlisted or didn't. And so we'll only receive credit in this area if they actually follow through with enlistment. So.
Yeah, we could count them before if they said they were going in the military.
We could. We needed to have some documentation. University High School actually has a really good system that they're using over there. They've created some personal relationships with the recruiters. And so each counselor has taken a branch of the military, and they've created that relationship with the recruiter. So when the recruiter actually talks to a student about enlisting, they write a letter on the student's behalf that we've had this conversation, this is what's going on, they drop it the file, and that was how they were documenting that these conversations were happening. So wasn't really a clear system or process across the district how to do that. So if someone were to ask how we were doing that uniformly across, I'm not sure that we could have produced that. But those are some of the things that we're looking at. I know you've heard Dr. Buchanan talk about systems and processes, and so we won't need that one now, but looking at our systems and processes around things such as that to ensure that we're headed in the right direction. Okay, industry-based certifications. I've kind of already spoken to this, but class of 2019 is our last class that is awarded any credit for simply taking CTE courses, and so they only receive that half credit, not a full credit. Now, what would happen, though, is they would look at this and they would say, okay, here are all the ways that a student can be CCMR ready. I could pass an AP exam, a dual, get my hours of dual credit and such. If I had no other markers other than these classes that I took but did not certify in CTE, they would award me the half point. But if I have a marker any place else, that will count before this. And that's just kind of a visual to show you this is accountability years. So 2019 and 20, we received the half point because at the end of this year, this will be 2020. Remember, it's lag data, so our CCMR indicators are coming from our class of 2019. So our 2020 accountability data will be reflective of the 2019 class. But after that, that goes away. In your board packet, this is reversed, and I apologize for that. Your slide presentation was printed before this little error was made. So in yours, just shows how that's calculated. So we have the number of college graduates who accomplished at least one CCMR credit, or high school graduates rather, who got that CCMR credit. So an example would be they're 490, and so that would go on top. On the bottom, total number of graduates, and that's how they come up with your percentage. And then they put it in their scaling tool, and we get a scaled result for that. So how do they pull this data, just in case you're curious? So most your SAT, ACT, those types of things are going to come to us from the Higher Education Coordinating Board. All other things are going to be pulled from PEIMS. And then, of course, we just talked about our military enlistment and how that will be tracked from here on out. Now, the interesting thing is the class of 2019, or maybe not so interesting, but we do have until January that last PEIMS submission to clean up any data. If we notice that there was a mistake, someone actually did receive a certification, or there was a mistake with graduation, we can correct that through this January for the class of 2019. And our PEIMS department is currently going through that data and preparing for resubmission to make sure it's as clean as possible, and so that we can do the best we can to be in the right place where that's concerned. On your ACTs, SATs, and such, there's even corrections that can be made on that. We'll receive a preview of that in May, and you can look at that if you're graduates, and you'll say, okay, well, we know that this student did this or that, and if something was reported incorrectly, we can submit a correction to that, and then those final results will come out in June for things that are not within the PEIMS database. And that just talks a little bit more about what I just was discussing. So how we match the TSI results to from the results from the Higher Education Coordinating Board and the match to PEIMS data, and where that all pulls together and converges into what we receive our ratings on. So the really important thing here is that we have to be correct with our data and our coding. That's the important thing. And what we just, to kind of, I guess, give you a heads up maybe of where we're sitting, as we went and we discussed these transcripts for only our special education students. Now, we are currently reviewing all transcripts, but we were just starting there. There were some coding things that we needed to work on. A lot of it back down to training, though. The other thing is we learned during that process that our PEIMS clerks on the campuses need more training. They don't really have monthly meetings or have training around what these things mean. And you think about that position, it's really a clerical position, but one that our ratings, funding so much attaches to. And so we're really working on some systems and processes with our PEIMS department to ensure they're receiving correct training and support. And so that's going to be really important moving forward.
And I would mention that we contracted with the Service Center, Region 12, to increase our support for PEIMS this year, and making sure that we're touching base with them on all the critical checkpoints, and that they're also providing training. And so we have already begun to work on that.
That person a lot of times is responsible for scheduling, first attempt at scheduling the student into classes and different things. And so also creating a system with counselors, PEIMS coordinators, and APs around how we intake students. And almost like a checks and balances system, like a double gate system in a way, that we're checking, and we have two eyes looking at these student transcripts to ensure that we're putting kids in the right courses when they come in, not duplicating courses that they've already had because they can't have double credit for something. And we did find a couple of instances where that was happening or has happened. And so then that student's going to be lacking, officially lacking hours because they've doubled up. So that is an area that we're focusing on, and know that we need to be better in that area. So here's a report that shows where our 2019 graduates finished last year in each of those areas. Can we make it? So what you will see is at the top it says, this is kind of small, even with my glasses I may have to. What you will see is Yes. So the Texas Success Initiative TSI criteria, what we're seeing there, that first is our ELAR and math. So it's going to break it down. So in reading, we had 388 students there. You'll see 46% that says met TSI criteria for at least one indicator, so altogether. Then when we go down and look, met TSI assessment criteria in reading, 322, met the reading criteria on the ACT, we had 49, met the reading criteria on the SAT, we had 96, or earned it through the college prep course was 71. So typically if a student takes the college prep course, that means that they were not successful on the TSI reading section of the test or the ACT or SAT section of the test, and so they took the college prep course. On math, you'll see that we had 173, 129 met the TSI criteria out of the 173. 43 met the math ACT criteria, and 44 met the SAT criteria. And then you'll see that we had one student who earned credit through the math college prep. This is an area we're really looking at because currently, let's say currently because we're working to fix it as of January, but previously both high schools did not offer both college prep courses. So if you were unsuccessful in one of the areas, that safeguard wasn't there, so to speak. And if we think about it, this isn't just to help us in accountability, it's to help students as well, because it's helping them prepare for college. Hopefully, then, if they are able to retake TSI or something along those lines, they won't end up in those remedial courses when they go to that first year of college. That would be the goal, is to prevent them from having to do that, so that they're not having to take a course that counts for no credit for them, but they have to pay for it. So on AP, we had 97 students who met the AP criteria. We do not have the IB program at the high school, so that wouldn't have applied to us. Dual credit, we had 164 students who earned at least 3 hours in ELA math or 9 hours, a combination of 9 and other subjects. Industry-based certifications, we had 80 who earned industry-based certifications. Level 1 or Level 2 certificates, 0. Now that, of course, is going to increase because that's the focus now. Associate's degree, we had 2. Like I said, we're currently reviewing senior transcripts with our Accelerate program. I would expect to see that number greater than 2. But if you think about it, that is a phase-in process, right? And so that program started and those students have to get to that level. So we should have a better indication of the success of that program at the end of this year. Yes, sir.
Last year, didn't we have more students graduate from MCC than the previous years? And what year is this supposed to cover?
These are 2018 graduates.
Oh, okay. Yeah, didn't we have more than 2?
So I would need to look at data, but this is not my report. This is the report from the state. I pulled their PDF. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I would be worried about, is that it would be a PEIMS coding error. A coding error.
I mean, we have a lot more than 2.
And we're going to present updates as we continue our transcript audits and looking at how our kids, where we're sitting to kind of keep you abreast of our trend. And so those they'll resubmit PEIMS in January. So any discrepancies they found with the 2019 graduates, we'll have a good handle on that. And then we're auditing the senior transcripts now. And then also meeting with Denise Bell again from Region 12 after that. So February, hopefully by the board meeting time, we should have a better indication of how many associate's degrees, well, in each area of CCMR, how we're trending. The bad part to that, though, is that those ratings, we don't get to
Go back.
we don't get to go back, and we don't get to appreciate those ratings for 2 more years. So that's why this is so important, because if we don't get this fixed, we are in trouble 2 years down the road and continuing. So not fixed as in this is broken, but anything that we see as a mistake or any processes that are loose that are causing numbers to reflect like this, we have to figure out why. And another area, look at our special education area. Remember the 54 and the 55 that I told you that our students could receive? We had no students who graduated in 2018 who received that credit in the special education, who were participating in the special education program. And I just don't believe that we had no students who had workability options. So, I do know that sitting just in that transcript audit that day, there were a number of students identified that would be an option for them. And then special education with an advanced degree, we had 18, which that's really great, because before this change, a student who was in special education, a foundation plan, they weren't able to get endorsements. And so that's changed, and they can do that, which allows this criteria to be possible. Armed Forces, we had 79 who reported that they were going to enlist, and this will, as I told you earlier, be important now, because they'll actually have to enlist. And I don't know of that 79, of course, because we have no way of knowing. Those were serious inquiries. We would have no way of knowing of those 79 how many actually went in and enlisted.
That will be one to follow across the state.
It will be, yeah.
From district to district and across the state, because we were really asking kids and taking them at their word for the most part, and so now we'll have some real data.
Now these last 2 numbers met non-CTE criteria, and I want to be sure I have the number of graduating seniors correct when I tell you this. In this, the 357 that says met non-CTE criteria, what that means is that they met the criteria either from a TSI test, from the dual credit, AP, something other than CTE. So we had 357 students across the district who did that. At the bottom there, it says 133. We had 133 students, so 16% of our students who were receiving their CTE credit through the coherent sequence of courses. And that's gone, so those are 133. If that stayed the same, we have to recapture that. We have to make sure that they're either getting their certification or finding a different avenue. So we had 839 graduates, and so 357 of them met non-CTE criteria, 133 achieved it through the coherent sequence of courses.
And we wouldn't, in 2020, we wouldn't get credit for those 133.
No, and I'll show you a slide here in just a sec that reflects what that might look like if we were not aware and weren't working to fix it. Do you hit the arrow? I think we need to kind of advance. There we go. So campus percentages, and this is based on coherent sequence of courses. So if you just looked at that by itself, Waco High School at the top, 61%. That scaled to 90, received the CTE credit. 64 at University, that scaled to a 91%. Brazos 9%, which scaled to a 73. Okay, and I have these numbers because the numbers on the left are a little light for you to see. The lighter blue bar would be the bar showing the accountability with the coherent sequence of courses. The darker blue bar shows without the coherent. So if it went away and we had nothing to replace it with, what would data have looked like without that? So at Brazos, that 73, the light blue bar that they had, that's what their numbers scaled to, would drop to a 69. At University High School, their 91 would drop to a 78. And at Waco High School, the 90 would drop to a 73. This is important because in the accountability world, there's a saying that says, so goes the high school, so goes the district. Mm-hmm. Because CCMR and graduation rates carry so much weight. 60% of our rating comes from that. And so that's why this is so important to understand. So just very quickly at our graduation rates, by high school, we get to choose the best of our 4, 5, or 6-year graduation rate. So University High School was at 92.4. As you can see, 5-year was 92.2 and 6-year 95.9 with a 1.9% dropout rate. Waco High was at 82% for 4-year, 85.2% for 5-year, and 90.7 for 6-year with a 3.5% dropout rate. And then Brazos was at 58.5% for their 4-year, 33.7 for 5, and 6-year was 37.6 with an annual dropout rate of 30.2. Just to kind of put this into perspective of where we're sitting. So as a district, when we combine all of those together, our graduation rate for 2018, just if we looked at 2018 by itself, was 76.1% for the entire district. That's on our TAPER report. To put it in perspective, our region...
4-year longitude.
4-year, exactly.
Cohort group.
Mm-hmm. Our region is sitting at 90.8, and the state is sitting at 90. So we're significantly below. And as you know, you approved our dropout recovery plan in our last board meeting, and so we're digging into that and trying to make improvements in that area. And we know that really the big thing there is touching kids, being aware of where they are, when they're at school, when they're not there, and who knows that they're there and not there. And really starting that their freshman year and knowing, Joseph hasn't been in school for 4 days. Where's Joseph? Because that child has a human touch point, and somebody's noticing that they're not there, and we're trying to find them. So looking ahead, CCMR, what are we doing to ensure that we are making the changes that we need to make and putting in our processes and knowing where we are? Training for counselors and registrars, which I've already kind of spoken to, creating systems and processes in many areas, but specifically around PEIMS, graduation plans, counseling services, and really knowing where our kids are. Senior transcript audits, looking at now. And that's also giving us a really big window into systems and processes that need to be put in place because of things that we're seeing. Designing graduation plans. Now, graduation plans are a requirement, but what we're talking about here is maybe a stronger graduation plan in that our counselors are having yearly post-secondary conferences with students, like I said, that touch point. And so we know their path starting from a freshman. And so if there's a blip or there's a change or something doesn't happen, we're on it before their senior year. I mean, really, their senior year is a little bit too late to be catching and trying to clean this stuff up. And we need to know, if we were doing this from freshman year, senior year should be a breeze. It should just, they're there, right? Except for our kids. I mean, we're always going to have a population of students who struggle and who need extra attention, but it shouldn't be a surprise. Dropout prevention. So we have our dropout prevention plan. Dr. Kincannon is looking into a dropout study to really look into something that was said at design thinking, and that kind of makes me think about this. And one of the things that design thinking teacher said was, we think we know what they want, meaning teachers. And so we develop things to recruit and retain them because we think we know, but really they know what they want. And so kind of the same thing here. We think we know why our students were losing them, but do we really? And there are a lot of things that we could possibly be doing to prevent that. Teacher support and retention. Stronger teachers, better relationships in the classroom, teachers that are more emotionally sound because they're not completely stressed, makes for better education. And so they're able to serve our students better. And so looking at that, systems and processes for tracking and intervening with students early. And our dropout prevention plan, starts from elementary, looking there. And then again, on both sides, those yearly post-secondary conferences, looking and seeing where these kids are ahead of time so that we can help avoid some of these problems. So for them. So that is the end of that. Do you have questions that I could answer for you?
Can I mention before we start questions that we are having someone conduct a program evaluation of Brazos High School. Mm-hmm. That is our credit recovery high school, but we do want to dig into the data and take a really in-depth look at the results that we're getting there, and to make sure that our programming is working.
And I've talked. Staff, yep, Ms. Latchison is still here. She and I spoke today, and she's eager for that to happen and learn how to strengthen that program. Any questions?
Mr. Sykes.
Thank you. Regarding dropout prevention, obviously it's in planning ahead to get to the level we are comparing to the region and the state and how far off track we are from those numbers. In terms of your planning ahead and the dropout prevention and these items you've listed, is there any relevancy to look back to see how we got where we are right now with whatever dropout prevention planning we did years ahead that obviously has not yielded results, to avoid those pitfalls in the future through your planning process?
Yes, I would say definitely. And I also think our dropout study will probably look into that as well. But I talked to, I've been here, I'm not even sure, 7, 8 weeks maybe. So talking to a lot of people to try to learn, because again, you don't want to assume, right, that certain things happened, didn't happen, or whatnot. And so just focusing as recent as last year's plan, there were a lot of things in the plan, a lot of research backed behind it. And so when I talked with people, some of the things I was told were that, well, we did have this training, we did do this, but the problem becomes then who's responsible for those things? Who does that live with? Where's the measure? Who's looking to see, is this having any effect on what we're doing? Or who are the students attached to it? And I think that is, and that's with anything. That's with curriculum, that's with testing, that's with whatever. When you put something in place, we need to have milestones and measures. And we have to check in on those measures and say, okay, where are we? And that doesn't mean that it gets abandoned. That doesn't mean that your effort is bad. What it means is, what do we need to tweak? What do we need to adjust? And to make this effective, if in fact it is an appropriate strategy, right? And if it's not, and it might not be, but if it is, then what do we need to do to adjust it? But you have to measure along the way, and there must be people responsible for, each piece. And one person can't be responsible for all of that. I mean, it is it's
a team effort.
Yeah.
I did go back and read the dropout prevention plan that was submitted to TEA last year, and used it as we looked at the data and had to and developed the district improvement plan. And had to submit another plan to TEA this year. Basically, we submitted our district improvement plan, but our work is about personal graduation planning, knowing the kids, putting in processes and systems in place to catch those kids.
And I do think services, I do think services going to come in, wraparound services, different things like that, will probably end up being something that gets mentioned because when students are in crisis and things are happening in their lives, coming to school is not the most important thing to them.
Well, judging from your comments, I'm hearing optimism going forward, but concerned about duplicating problems from the past.
Definitely.
So.
I appreciate, in the beginning of your report, you were talking about PEAMS, and I know that this administration really has been looking at PEAMS and trying to kind of check off the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. PEAMS seems like probably our first step in fixing kind of some of these things that problems that we're finding as we go along. So I really appreciate just the administration, your hard work in making sure that the PEAMS coordinators are trained, that they have the support that they need, because I think that's number one. We don't want to assume they're not doing their job. We want to assume, oh, maybe you didn't have the training, or maybe you didn't have the support. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate that. And I'm excited to hear about the support that's going to be coming to Brazos and in the study, because I think, that is one area that, when we're talking about relationships and counselors, I think, man, that is one area where that they could really use that. They have unique opportunities there. And so I think, hearing that this administration is going to do that sounds, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, seems like the right track to kind of go. So I appreciate all that you all are doing in this regard, and I know that's can feel like a large process, and I appreciate your attitude of going in and talking to people with kind of this institutional history and learning, because I think there are lots of people in this district who have this longevity here and that institutional history who can tell you, we've done this program, or we said we're going to do this program, but we didn't really implement it with fidelity, and so, yeah.
To be honest, that's a problem in education in general. Yeah. We always bring more, right? And when something isn't working, or we perceive it not to be working, we're on to the next thing. When sometimes it might have been the training, the support, the rollout, the implementation plan, and it's maybe not necessarily what you were trying to implement, it's that we didn't go about it the right way. And so finding those things out, we certainly don't want to stop something that has been working, but we definitely don't want to spend our time doing something that isn't working. So determining what those things are will be important.
We heard a lot from teachers during the Design Thinking Institute about changes, how they were getting started on something, and then we would switch to a new program, and how they really felt frustrated with those changes and really didn't get their sea legs under them before we moved over to a new program. And so consistency was a word that we heard a lot the last 3 days. Could we be consistent? And then that curriculum development all the way back from kindergarten up, and how being on the same page as a district and implementing a system where if I'm in one school and I move to the other school, I don't miss anything because everyone's using the same scope and sequence, and there's continuity from campus to campus. And so that will be a big piece of the work, and we'll have Ms. Kornblum come back in January and talk about data-driven instruction and how we're going to be moving towards, we're going to kind of hack at, we've talked a lot about hacking the last 3 days, just like chipping away, right? Chipping away at the work, but we're going to chip away at the work this spring, and then we're going to really dive into that curriculum development with the teachers when we hit the summer. So we'll hack and work as diligently as we can to correct some things in the system in the spring in terms of curriculum implementation in the classrooms, and then we'll be working on the bigger system at the same time.
And the unfortunate thing with that comes change, and they're talking about change.
And then we're changing again.
But at the same time,
it's change that they want
to give them the things they're asking for, and then hopefully provide the support, and it stays that way. So, anything else? Thank you.
Anything else? Good. Well, thank you so much. All right, announcements.
Thank you, Madam President. As we head into the holiday season, there are some incredibly special Waco ISD traditions, and I wanted to highlight one of them in particular, and that's the Make-A-Wish Come True program that's a project of the University High School soccer and JROTC programs. This great program for University High School and campuses in the University High School feeder pattern invites students to write an essay about what they would do for the holidays with $100. And essays are then chosen, and volunteers from around the district, supporters from across the community go out and find the things to make those hopes and dreams a reality. The soccer and JROTC students coordinate the program and then make deliveries. Deliveries are underway now. They continue through next week. It's just an incredibly special time, and I'd encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to go to one or more of the deliveries. And if you're interested in supporting or helping out, there are still opportunities for you to do that. You can find Mike Chapman through the University High School website, and he'll let you know how you can get engaged and support a student in that program. The Magnet School enrollment period is open now, and that process continues through January 31st when we come back from the break. We have just incredible programs at both Hillcrest and Lake Air, and would encourage parents to learn more about that. If you're wanting to learn more, there's really no better way to see those campuses and see what's unique about them than to take a campus tour and arrange that with the campuses directly. To learn about the application process, you can go directly to all the details in the application form on our website by going to wacoisd.org/magnet app. That's magnet app. And then finally, a week from tomorrow, December 20th, is an early release day for our students and a full day for our staff, but then we jump into the winter break. Our offices and campuses will be closed from December 23rd through January 3rd. Our staff return on January 6th, and our students return on January 7th. So we hope that between now and our next meeting, you have a wonderful time with friends and family, celebrate the season, and have a very happy start to 2020.
All right. Anything else? No. All right. With that, we are adjourned. Good night. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.